Good morning, and welcome to Candid Conversations with me, Linda Burhans, talking to fabulous people about fabulous things. And today I have my friend Bobby Lewis with me, and I'm so glad you're here today, my friend.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you wanted to chat.
Well, a couple of months ago, I saw on Facebook that you were making some crosses, and
Yes.
and I came to visit you. So let's tell our listeners how the journey happened and how the crowded garage became a crossroads.
Yeah, I have been in my life the least handy person that you'll ever meet. I'm telling you, like when I was younger, my dad was like, "Hey, you want to go to Home Depot?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to go to Home Depot." He's like, "I'll buy you a candy bar if you just ride with me." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to Home Depot. It's terrible. I don't want to go to any kind of fixer-upper home type of store. I don't want anything to do with a hammer. I want nothing to do with a saw. No wood, no nails, no screws, nothing." And then I've got a little bit older, and just about a year, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I just decided, let's see what I can make today. And I just started, with one piece of wood and a couple of little tools that I already had in the garage, and just kind of got the builder's bug, if you will. And I just started making some things and trying my hand at woodworking, and it eventually worked out to making crosses. Actually, I have some of them here, like making crosses like these. Just wood and epoxy crosses, and just having fun with it. And it's the weirdest thing, because the people that have known me for a very long time are saying, well, wait, you're making stuff in the garage? Like, you hate the garage? I'm like, I know, I do hate the garage, but now I enjoy spending time out there. So yeah, it's been kind of a fun journey, and it's been a nice ride the last year and a half.
So, what made you decide on the cross?
Well, I'm a Christian. I definitely believe that there's power in the cross. It's a symbol, thousands of years ago, symbol of death and evil and destruction, and just terrible way to execute a prisoner. But in the Christian belief, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, dies on a cross and transforms that symbol of evil and hatred into something that's beautiful and really unmatched by any other religious symbol. It's something that I think is super special. People wear cross earrings, they wear cross necklaces, they get cross tattooed. Like, the cross is something everybody kind of recognizes as a special religious symbol, but it's more than just a symbol. It's the actual it's the actual place where the Son of God died on a cross for your sins, and that's pretty special. So I think if we can get more crosses on walls, the better.
I just went to visit a friend recently, and she had an entire wall of crosses. Everywhere she goes to visit, she buys a cross. I was like, how cool is that?
It is cool, and it's a neat thing. It's an automatic symbol on when someone walks into your home and they see that there's a cross on your wall, or they go into your guest room or whatever, and there's this beautiful cross that's sitting on the table. They'll say, "Oh my goodness, well, that's beautiful. Either where did you get it? Why do you have it?" And it opens the door for a conversation. And for someone who believes in Jesus dying on the cross for the taking away of your sins, it really is a great open door to share your faith with somebody. And that's kind of the point that I was doing. I went out in the garage, and the first thing that I started doing when I was doing woodworking initially was, okay, Jesus was a carpenter. In that time, depending on who you read and what historian you may listen to, that the idea that word carpenter may have been translated as a stonemason or a wood or a handyman type of thing. Regardless of whether Jesus worked with primarily wood or stone or whatever, he worked with his hands. And so I'm out there with this wood, and I'm sanding it, and I'm like, there's some parallels here between what a carpenter can do with a piece of wood and what Jesus can do with your soul. You can smooth out the rough edges. Everybody in their life has rough edges, things that we do that we don't really want to do. We say that sharp word that we don't mean to say because we're just in a moment of passion, or we're slipping into some little sins that we don't want to slip into occasionally. And so you can sand those out. You can form that piece of wood into something new. You can take what was considered useless and thrown away and restore it to something different. And that's exactly what, I believe Jesus does to your soul. And so that's what I was thinking through when I was out in the garage working on some of these things. And so I said, all right, well, if that's the case, let's take some of this wood and let's put it together in cross form, and that way it tells the story twice.
Well, that's what so attracted me, because the first cross I saw was the green one with the little pieces, the little round So tell that
Greece.
story about that one.
A couple of years ago, I'm trying to think, it must have been 2 years ago. We had a hurricane. We live in Florida, and hurricanes are pretty common in Florida, although we haven't had a really bad one in a while, so that's great. But we did have it was either hurricane or really bad tropical storm came through, and the house that we live in had two enormous trees in the front yard. Beautiful trees. They've been there 60, 70 years, and they just snapped. One of them just snapped in the storm, and later on, after that one fell down, the other one fell down because it didn't have its buddy to protect it anymore, and the wind was hitting it.
Yeah.
And so this maple tree that had been there forever, it fell down, and it missed our front door by like 10 feet, not even. It landed in the only possible area where it didn't hit the roof, it didn't hit the porch, it didn't hit the door, and it was a thunderous sound. It was like a truck ran into that. It was so loud. And so I went out there and I'm looking at it, it's pouring rain. And I'm like, well, thank you, Lord, that this didn't ruin my house, but also what a mess I got to clean up, right? So I went out there, and the next day I started cutting it up. And this was right around the time I was like dipping my toe in the shallow end of woodworking. And so I didn't even really think much about it. I was more thinking about what a mess was in my yard. I should have thought more about what can I use this for? So I just started cutting it up, and I didn't know when I cut this tree, I pulled it back, and behind the bark, which you never would have been able to see had this thing not fallen down, were these streaks and these lines, these black lines on the tree. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. I wonder what this is. And I had met a man who did some woodworking in St. Petersburg, and I talked to him. I said, what is this? Like, it's kind of a weird thing. I've never seen it. Is this a fancy kind of wood? Like, what is it? And he goes, that is actually called spalting. And I have a piece of the spalted wood here just to show you. I don't know if you can really tell, but this is a piece of wood that was previously growing in my front yard. You can see all these lines on it. All of these little lines, and this is just a hole from where a bug was eating the tree, but like all these dark lines in the tree are called spalt lines. And these spalt lines are individual and unique to the tree. What it is it's the indication of a fungus that's growing in the tree that is slowly killing it. You can't see it from the outside. There's no indication really that there is spalting going on in the wood unless you peel the bark back and you look underneath. And I thought, that's interesting. So you're telling me there's a virus hidden in the tree that we can't see from the outside that's slowly killing it, and there's nothing you can do to stop it? And he goes, yeah. And I immediately said, that sounds a lot like sin, doesn't it? And so the Christian in me thought, well, if this spalting that is basically ruining the tree on the inside is exposed, and we now see it and we understand what it is, if it can be taken and applied to a cross, the way Jesus would take our sin and take it to the cross and deal with it on the cross forever, then what a beautiful way to reuse this tree that fell down in the yard. Yeah. I had no idea it even had this spalting, and put it on a cross. It's the perfect species of wood to use for this. And so I've started doing that. And I think that was maybe one of the ones that caught your attention as well. It's just become a beautiful two-edged story, if you will. The cross itself tells a story, but then the wood in the cross tells a story. And then I used it in this particular cross. You can see how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
When it goes onto the cross and it's encased in this epoxy and it's completed, you can still see the lines that go up and down the cross. Yeah. And so to me, it represents sin. Sin is still a part of who we are. We're not going to be able to stop sinning. We strive to not sin. We don't want to sin, but it's just innate in us. And it's something that we're going to end up doing for the rest of our lives. But when that sin is taken to the cross, it looks totally different.
Yeah.
It's going to be, transformed from what it once was into something brand new. And I think it's been a really cool opportunity to share a story with people who are interested in having crosses on their walls. And I've been blown away by how many people have, seen little pictures of what I've done on Facebook or whatever and said, hey, can I buy one of those from you? And I never expected that. I was doing these crosses for fun. I thought they'd be really cool. I got a mold and I put them all together and I was like, hey, look, I'll give this to, my mom for Mother's Day or whatever. And never in my life thought that people would want to buy a cross.
People need these crosses. People need these crosses. One of the crosses I got from you, I gave to my cousins for a housewarming gift in Michigan. And they were like, oh, we really wanted a cross, we didn't get a cross. And oh my goodness, this cross is so beautiful. And all I said to them simply was, I didn't do the whole story, but I was like, part of this tree, the tree in this cross was from a hurricane.
Yeah.
And I just want to let you know that even though there are hurricanes in your life and you get knocked down, Jesus Christ is always here to bring you back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, wow, that makes this cross even specialer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had a pastor tell me once, and I think it's great. I have not forgotten it. There's 3 seasons of your life. There is going into a storm, there's in a storm, and there's coming out of a storm. Like, those are the only 3. So if you're currently not in one, that means you're probably headed into one at some point. If you're in one right now, it can be a little scary, but you know that you'll eventually get out of one. And if you're leaving one, then you know you have perspective on what you just went through, and you're leaving it behind.
And you made it.
And you made it, yeah. And the cool part is the cross reminds us that God was with us the entire time, that you're never abandoned to just deal with a storm on your own. And I love that message that you share with them, because it's really what I would like people to see when they see these crosses. Is like, man, this wood, it tells a story. And the cross itself is this iconic, beautiful symbol. But when you couple it with this wood, it is even more beautiful. And so it's been super fun.
And now that you're customizing crosses too, because I brought you some shells, because my aunt loves shells, and my aunt is 80-something years old
with some seashells in it, like this, right? Yeah. This one's a little different color than the one that I made for you, but I mean, it's essentially the same. There's these seashells that are embedded in the epoxy, and it looks like the beach. And it's got darker wood on the bottom. It's got sand and shells in the water. And that has become a super popular thing. You were the first one to ask for a beach themed cross, and I thought, I've never done that, but I can give it a shot. And just all the skills that I had built up over the months of doing it in the garage by myself, when you asked me to do something that I'd never done before, I wasn't intimidated by it. I was like, I can try it. I can tackle that. And it turned out beautifully. And I posted, a couple of pictures of it on Facebook, and you would not believe the number of people who emailed and said, oh my gosh, did you make that? I said, yeah. And I'm not thinking it was remarkable, just thinking it was special that I had made something. And they said, can you make me one? I have a friend who, loves the beach. Oh, can I send you shells from my local beach and sand from my local beach? And can you make it for like Marco Island or wherever you're from? Can you make a beach with my shells? And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm just goofing around in the garage here, but if you want me to, yes, I'll do that for you. And it's become a really special thing to take the skills that God has built up in me over the course of the last year or so and apply them to a product that can be given to somebody that really, influences them and uplifts them. What a rewarding thing. What a way to use your hands to help other people.
Oh my goodness. The Lord is very proud of you, my friend. So
I appreciate that. I really, the last year, I've been thinking a lot about the word creativity and how every one of us, the first sentence of the Bible is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So God is a creative God. And we, you read down further in Genesis, says we were created in God's image. So we look like God. We're supposed to image God. We're an image bearer of God. So we're supposed to be creative like God is creative. In Exodus, the Israelites are building the tabernacle, and God specifically equipped people with different skills and talents. Some people were good at weaving, so they made tapestries. Some people were good at woodworking, so they made different things for the altar. Everyone had these skills, but they were expected to use the skills that God gave them to benefit the people around them. Right. And so that's kind of the idea here is I never expected to have these skills. I was telling you, I didn't like Home Depot. I don't want to go to like woodworking class. I didn't want to do that stuff when I was younger. But as I've gotten older, those skills have crept up and they've become a special skill that can be applied to benefit other people. And now it's all I think about. I'm like, man, I got to go in the garage and make some crosses for somebody today. It's so fun. It's
very interesting. About a month or so ago, I started doing paint pouring.
Yeah.
And I'm not very artsy either. But now, like, my grandchildren come over and we spend time together. Or like a friend wanted to come over and let's just paint pour together.
Yeah.
It's so much fun and it's so fabulous and it's something I never thought I could do, but it's worth a try, right?
Well, I think I didn't get to meet him more than one time, but my wife's grandfather was an incredible man. And I know of him, but I don't know him very well. He unfortunately passed away right after we started dating when we were in college. But I remember meeting him one time. Man, almost broke my hand with his handshake. He was just this like, nice to meet you, young man type of guy. But in his life, hearing stories about him over the years, He was a cardiologist. He raced Porsches. He flew a plane. He flew planes. He taught himself to fly. He drove a tour bus at Disney. Like, he did all these different things throughout his life. He was like this world-class golfer, like incredible things.
Wow.
He also, I believe, was in line to go to the Olympics before it was canceled in Germany, in Munich.
Wow.
So he was going to be on the Team USA swim team for the Olympics, and then the Olympics got canceled. So, like, an incredible man who's done all sorts of things, and also took up woodworking. Interestingly enough, later in years, he was using the lathe and making bowls and things. And my wife tells me stories about him all the time, and I think that's the life I want to live. I don't want to spend 60, 70, 80 years of my life just doing the same thing all the time. I want to learn as many different things as I possibly can, and then take the things that I've learned and apply them to help other people in some way.
Yeah.
For me, like my career that I had for many years was television. I was a television reporter, very successful television reporter. Got to meet all kinds of people, including yourself, people that are doing wonderful things, share their story in great ways. And that to me was a really cool chapter of my life. Now, move on to this different chapter of my life where I'm making wood stuff and making these crosses. Like, that is a totally different thing than picking up a camera. A saw and a camera are not the same thing. Like, they're totally different. But they're two beautiful chapters in an ongoing story that, who knows, maybe 20 years from now, maybe I'll do something else. I don't know. But I don't want to be someone who just sits there and does the exact same thing all the time forever and never experiences the full breadth of the options.
Yeah, that's how I am. I don't want to miss a minute of life.
No. I mean, I'm being installed as an elder at my church in Largo right now. And I was asked to pray this past week. And unfortunately, we had some folks in our church pass away this past week. And so I was thinking about this. I'm like, it's so fleeting. Everything that we do, we kind of have this idea that we'll all die at 97 with 44 grandkids around our bed, and we'll just die in our sleep. That most of us are not going to make it to 97 with 44 grandkids and die peacefully in our sleep. That's just not what happens. And nobody knows how far along you are on the timeline. I mean, tomorrow could be my last day. I have no idea. And so whenever God decides that I've lived enough and I need to come home to heaven, that's fine with me. I'm okay with it. I'd love to be here longer because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But if I can spend every waking moment on this earth as if it's the last day, as if I only get one more shot at this to make an impact for God on the world, then I'm going to do that. And I found that this woodworking has become, something that's given me the option to do that. Like, I mean, these things they're fun to make, and so I'm going to have fun making them and give them to folks so that they can put them in their homes and hopefully, even if tomorrow is my last day and I'm gone, there's something left behind that people will say, oh yeah, that's pretty special.
Well, I hope you're here for a long time because I got a few more crosses I want.
I don't want to go anywhere, but I'm just saying that's my mindset is do everything today as if it's the last day and do it all for God. That's it.
Yeah. And weren't you making some military crosses too? Do you have any of those?
I do. I have one little one here. This is a kind of a USA themed one. It's red, white, and blue, and it's got the same spalted wood from the tree there. And then I made some military themed crosses that have military pins in them. I made one for the Coast Guard. There's a gentleman down the street who just retired this week from the Coast Guard after 27 years. So I thought I'm going to give him a cross with the Coast Guard emblem in it. That's been a special thing too. In fact, this cross right here, this is one of 6 that I made for an event coming up in September of this year that's going to be specifically for Gold Star families, who have lost loved ones in the line of duty. And so they don't even know they're getting these, but in a couple of weeks at this military event, I believe it's in Tampa, 6 families are going to receive this custom cross that is unique to their family, because it's going to be given to them essentially as a thank you for being a family who was brave enough to serve, and unfortunately lost a loved one in that decision. So what an honor for me, some guy just goofing around in the garage to be called up and said, please make these crosses that are going to hang on the walls of someone's home.
It's a privilege.
Child died in service. I mean, what an amazing thing,
And what an amazing thing that you could take a medal or something and put it into a cross that would sit in the drawer.
Yeah.
to bond those. My husband, before he died, he gave me a bracelet that says "I love you."
Yeah.
And it catches on everything. And I'm going to bring that to you because I want that in a cross, because I want to remember that he loved me and that Jesus always loves me.
Yeah. Yeah. What a
You
great
know,
story. Well, there's this beautiful verse. I believe it's John 15:13. It might be 13:15. I think it's 15:13. It said, what's more beautiful than laying down your life for a friend? And that's essentially what Jesus did. He calls you a friend, which is what a beautiful thing. The creator of the world, is interested in being friends with you. And so, that verse kind of resonates with me a little bit when you think about military as well. These people have sacrificed their lives in some cases so that you can have the opportunity to go goof around in the garage and make crosses.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And not only that, but worship freely in a country like the United States,
Yeah.
where you're not afraid that someone's going to break down the door and arrest everybody in the church. That is the reality for a lot of people around the world who worship in secret, because it's a very real threat to their life to even carry or own a Bible. So that cross, a military cross, is extra special for me because it's a reminder of all the freedoms that we have because people have sacrificed to make that the case here. So
I always say I'm so grateful that I live in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. I am so grateful that I live here and for our freedom and that we get to do that. And we get to worship however we want to.
Can easily take it for granted because for me, I've lived in the United States my entire life. It's all I've known. And so it's easy to just take for granted the things that have been innate since you were born, and it's not that way around the world. I definitely want people to, appreciate, the freedom of assembly and worship. It's just not possible in many places right now.
Exactly.
So it's special.
And I go visit all different churches. I love churches.
Yeah.
Basically, the rule is exactly the same. Do unto others as they would have them do unto you. They may have different prayers or whatever. And I just think by you making these crosses too, people are having more conversations. Conversations that need to be had.
I'm a big believer in we need more crosses on more walls. If nothing else, it doesn't have to, be something that you point out. Someone comes to your home and you're like, hey, look at the wall. Right? You see that? That's pretty cool. And you don't have to go out of your way to point it out, but people notice those sort of things, when there's, especially if it's bright and colorful, something like this, that's really, really bright and it'll catch your attention. It's noticeable for one, because it's beautiful, but also because it represents something so passionate and important. And so if someone were to come to your home and there's a cross hanging on the wall, they will recognize it. They may not bring it up necessarily in conversation right away, but maybe they come over 2 or 3 more times and the same cross is on the wall. And maybe on the 4th or 5th visit to your house, they're like, tell me about that cross. Tell me, where'd you get it? And it opens this door, and that's all you need. It's just a little bit of a crack to share what's important to you. And it's not badgering anyone. It's not demanding that they say, okay, well, now that you've asked, I'm going to whack you over the head with this Bible until you believe in Jesus. That's not what we're trying to do. It's mostly just sharing the love of Christ that you have in your heart, and the cross, and having these on the wall is just a beautiful opportunity to do that. And from there, it's off your hand. The Holy Spirit will work in whatever ways the Holy Spirit wants to work. It's just you planting a seed and letting it go. And
but I think sometimes when we're just having a tough time, when we're in a tough time, we can forget. And I think just having that cross on the wall can give you a reminder when you're when you're in a tough time.
Well, it has been for me, because I mentioned to you earlier, you didn't even know that I unfortunately lost my TV job in 2021, November. So it's been 9 months or however long. So that's a long time. And so thankfully I've had lots of support from friends and family, and I've used some of the TV skills that I accumulated over the years to kind of do some side jobs and things that kind of made some money for our family. But these crosses really only happened because I had this time on my hands. I had the free time. And so instead of wasting that time and just sitting around or just, not taking advantage of this gift of the available time to cultivate a new skill, I went to work and figured out how to do that. And so now that, I believe in the next, week or two, I should be, back and doing some more full-time working. What happens is, now that I'm going to probably have more of a 9 to 5, 40-hour commitment, going on, I can actually make these on a faster scale because I've harnessed all the skills required. So instead of learning on the fly and not really having enough time to apply to it, I can now continue to, do
Right.
other work, but come home and have dedicated time where I can do it quickly because I know all the background skills required to make these things. So I can still do, the work that's required of me to support my family, but also can still do this, cross, business, if
That
you will,
brings you joy.
that brings me joy and happiness and does something special for other people. And
Right.
so, it's weird to think of like, joblessness as a gift, but in some way, I'm viewing it as the gift of time. And I've been given more time with my family. I've been given, my kids are little, so I want to spend time with them. And I've also been given the time to, work on these skills to do something that I
Yeah.
never would have thought was possible. And now I can do it faster and on a bigger scale to get these crosses out to people.
Well, this past couple of years with the COVID and everything, there were gifts of COVID. There were real gifts of COVID, with people spending time with their families, with people doing things they never had time to do before. I think as anything, it's how you look at it.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing to say that. I know there's this stigma around the word COVID because sadly many people died in the last 2 years who got sick, but that doesn't mean that every single person on this 8 billion person planet has to walk around doom and gloom with just the word COVID in the air. It was a great thing in many respects because it slowed people down.
Yeah.
It reminded people what was the most important thing, which is your health and your family. And then it gave people, if you were asked to go work at home, you just gained many, many hours in your week because you didn't have to commute anymore. You were able to spend more time with your children as people kind of phase back into doing stuff, at an office building or whatever. And some have been doing that for a while. Those little lessons that were learned in a 2-year span of appreciating the things that, aren't really things, that's important, just appreciating the extra weeks that you have with your kids at home, appreciating the lack of commute so you could spend more time with your wife in the morning, have breakfast together, whatever. That stuff's special. And if you choose to look at it that way, it won't feel so doom and gloom, No,
it won't. How do your kids think about the crosses?
They really like it. In fact, this one here is my daughter's. I took it off the wall in her bedroom so I could show it to you. She specifically asked for a beautiful teal cross because I made a teal cross, and she said, "That's an amazing color." So she helped mix the colors and she helped pour the epoxy. We did the whole project together, and then it's hanging on the room in her wall. And that's a special thing for me because by setting the example of what a cross means and why it's important, it's instilling that value in my daughter so that from a very young age, she can say, "Oh, the cross matters. Why does it matter? Let me talk about this. What's the point of it? Who is Jesus?" And all that stuff matters to me as a parent who's trying to, share these values with my daughter. And then she's 11. My son is 7, and he actually took a little different route. He realized, oh, you can make money doing that. Oh, well, let me make some money. So he's had a little different approach where. Whenever he wanted some money, he's like, "Hey, Dad, can we make a cross together today?" And so he did that a while back, and he sold his grandmother a cross and bought some shoes that he wanted. So, it's
that's a good thing now. But your daughter will have that cross for the rest of her life that she made with her dad.
I hope so. Yeah. My goal is that this cross goes off to, college or wherever she ends up going, and it's on the wall. Maybe she gives it to her daughter one day. I don't know. But, exactly. That's the point. The point is not to just make something and just move on as if it never happened. The point is to make something and gift it in some way so that it becomes this special memory. I mean, who knows? I mean, you have, these crosses that you wanted with the beach shells and stuff. Who's to say that someone sees it and says, "Oh, I'd love that," and then you get to give it to someone else someday? I don't know. But they're just so cool.
I love it.
Be able to make these and give them away. Super fun.
Yeah, you know me, I'm a regular customer because I love giving crosses to people. It just makes me feel so good, and it makes me feel so good to have a conversation with them. Because sometimes with our own families, we don't have those conversations.
Yeah, it can be tricky, but it's not really up to us to like bend anyone's heart. It's up to us to use whatever skills and abilities that we have to share God's love with others. You do that with your photographs in the morning. You walk over and just take pictures of the beauty that God has placed all around us. And that's a sermon in itself, So yeah, I don't think it's my job to, make this cross and then hit you with it so that you believe in whatever I want you to believe in. That's not it. It's just, hey, this is something that I felt was special. I wanted to make this. If you want to hang it on your wall, great. If you want to hang it on your wall, that's fine. But I made it, and I want you to know that it's special and it matters. So that's all it is, And it's. It
When I
seems like
say my prayers in the morning, I say, just direct me. I'm just your vessel. I don't have a clue most of the time.
Yeah.
And he does a really good job of directing me.
Yeah. Well, that's the way that I ended up getting to this point because, like I said, I never in my life would have ever thought that I'd be someone who would spend hours of the week sitting in a garage sanding crosses. But
really,
it's been a ride, and I'm thankful for it. Because in this season of 2-year season, or not, excuse me, not 2 years, this 9-month or so season of not having a consistent job that I was up and leaving to go do every day. There can be some down moments in that. You can be disappointed, not necessarily just from a financial perspective, but from a, duty perspective. Everyone has this need to, produce. I talk about everyone being creative. If you don't have an outlet to share your creativity or to feel like you're fulfilling some kind of a purpose, then you can get dejected a little bit over that. And so, these crosses have offered me an opportunity to feel like I really have, found some sort of a separate purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to journey down that path,
So where can our listeners find you?
The easiest place is going to be an Instagram account that I created. It's called Very Crowded Garage. And I came up with a YouTube page and things. I haven't populated that YouTube page as much lately, mostly because I've been so busy making these. But I have lots of pictures of different crosses that I've made there. And then there's a link on that account where if you want to order one, you can click on that and order one. And they're all customized. I mean, I brought a couple pieces there. Like I showed you the spalting wood. This is one that I like to use. But if you don't particularly like that one, you don't have to use that one. I've used all different kinds of woods. This is a walnut. This is a mahogany. There's so many different. This is a Cuban mahogany. I think there's so many different kinds of wood that can be used. They're customized to any, wood species you want, any color you want. I got, blues here, greens, any color that you want really can be mixed and created. So if it's a special color that you associate with a loved one, you can do that for you. If you want purple, I can make that. If you want spalted wood, you can make that. Mahogany, you can want that. It's basically customizable in any way. I've embedded things in the epoxy, like we talked about, your seashells. I did a pin in one of the crosses that you wanted, an angel wings pin, the military emblem. I mean, anything that's special and important to you can most likely be, embedded in these crosses in a way that preserves them and makes them special. So that's the cool part too, is that the cross in itself, Jesus Christ's cross, is for everyone, but he didn't just die for everyone. He died for you specifically. So you specifically, cumulatively, adds up to everyone, but it's as if you were on Jesus's mind as nails were going in his hands and his feet, and he's hanging there. It's as if he was doing it specifically for you. And so this cross, in some interesting way, if you want to call it that, customizing the cross to make it look the way you want it to look, it just makes it feel more personalized. And it connects you, I think, in a special way to Jesus, because Jesus did it for you because you have sin, and the only way to expunge that sin is to go through the cross. He did it for you on the cross. And so having that cross customized to you that makes it special to you makes that moment even more special in some way, I think.
Yeah, that's fabulous. All right, I'm going to put all the information in this show for people that look for it later. And I'll see you on Thursday, my friend. Thanks so much for being with me.
I'm glad that I got a chance to share it. It really has been a fun ride, a special ride. I hope that it grows even more because, like I said, it's not so much about, hey, can I sell a cross today? It's more about, can we get a cross on a wall today? And that's what I want. I want more crosses on more walls.
Well, I'm your biggest cheerleader.
Oh, I know. I appreciate it.
Have a delicious day, my friend.
All right. Thank you. It's nice to see you.
All right. Bye.
All right.